Hey, Laura.
Hey, Paul.
Pew. Pew. Hey, buddy.
Whoa! You know you can't bring that weak ass stuff up in this Humpty Bumpy. You killed it, Joe. You make some more. You know that, baby. Else you in for a long day. A long day. Cause triple T's up in this bitch.
Some people said I was crazy when I brought Terry on board, but I'm a firm proponent of paradigm breaking, outside-the-box thinking. And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, bitch. I am an enforcer, man. Don't nothing go down in my house. It's 100% hard, baby. Sure, I jack a few fools. I give them the pain. But sometimes it's about intimidation, you know. It's mind games.
So, all right, I'll see you later.
Check razor! Check razor! Get ready for the pain, woman! The pain train is coming! It's in there! Please don't hurt me! Please don't hurt me!
I miss Terry Tate, the terrible Terry Tate, office linebacker. Why did I bring him up? Because we got terrible Tyrice Knight, and he's out there smacking fools. Thank you so much for being here for First Kick Seahawks, the place where we prepare you for the first kick of every play by game day. You might be asking, Camden, where the hell have you been? And I'll say, well, I have health issues, and sometimes it flares up, and I'm not able to participate in things that I would like to participate in. It's my ME/CFS flared up, so I wasn't able to record. But I'm recording now. I slept all day Sunday and feeling a little bit better. One thing to keep in mind about this is that normally I do a reaction show after a game so I can keep it fresh. I didn't keep it fresh this time. We're not keeping it real. But we're going to do the best that we can. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. The Seahawks played their second preseason game of the 2024 season, and they lost to the Titans. I'm being a little meh about it, mostly because the Seahawks had their third and fourth stringers out there for most of the game, and the Titans kept bringing in their second stringers towards the end of the first half, in the end of the fourth quarter. So the competition wasn't quite even, right? But we did get to see Tyrice Knight out there. He's one of our starters, and the more he plays, the more I'm like, yeah, he's that dude, right? I still think he could be a lemon, and we'll get into that. We also saw some good blocking from the tight ends, in particular Brady Russell. That was cool. Stone Forsythe continues to look like Stone Forsythe, and Michael Jarrell continues to look like Michael Jarrell, which means that our quarterbacks were on their butt for quite a portion of the game. And that doesn't help for a quarterback like P.J. Walker, who was continuing to have struggles completing passes. Part of that was his footwork. Part of that was his decision-making. Sam Howell, though, under pressure, used to being under pressure because he was sacked over 60 times last year. He responded well, kept moving the ball down the field, and if he stayed in the game, we probably would have won that game. P.J. Walker... So the conversation with PJ Walker is he good enough to possibly trade? Can we get a 7th round pick by trading him to some unlucky team like the Vikings, who lost their starting quarterback and they need a new number 2? I'm not sure if we can do that. The big thing with PJ Walker is his under 60%, about 40% range for his completion rating. If you want to trade for him, chances are you can pick up a free agent that's going to be just as good, maybe not as young. But remember, this is his 7th year in the league, his 8th year in the league. But I think Sam Howell clearly secured that job. He's looking really sharp. Like he's throwing some dimes out there. Maybe not moon balls, Russell Wilson style, but he's getting the ball there almost on a line. He does have a little touch. And if Brady Russell, our tight end, had secured the ball a couple of times there, we probably would have gotten more field goals at the very least. So good things from Sam Howell, probably giving Geno Smith a little bit, not a great, but a little bit of a run for his money, which Geno Smith, of course, said this last week that he would like an extension. He's got 2 years left on his contract, but realistically, he only has 1 year left on his contract. He also doesn't have a lot of incentives, so probably what he's going to try to arrange is turn some of those incentives into immediate cap hits or add more incentives so that he can make more money as this season goes on. If Sam Howell was to start, I would trust him more than I would trust Drew Lock. We haven't seen any errant passes that would have been picked off. PJ Walker, we've seen a couple, but not to the same extent that our defense has been creating, right? We saw Cody Bryant with another interception, I believe. And the defense is just all over the ball. There is one where Cody broke on a pass and almost picked that thing off. Cool to see that he has still not changed when it comes to turnovers. But if we're going to deal with PJ Walker, if we trade him, right, that's probably going to be at the end of the third preseason game to a desperate team. And I don't think he would make it to the practice squad. If he was to go to free agency, we would probably have to bring in somebody else for the practice squad. I think he would much rather go to a team where he would compete for playing time, like the Vikings. So on that point, Geno Smith has a run for his money, and it's a damn good thing we have him and not Russell Wilson. I don't know if any of you watched that Steelers preseason game, but I have some concerns about Russell Wilson. And I know this isn't a Steelers show, but I want to talk about it because of how long he was with us. His passes look like I'm throwing them. I can be a fairly accurate quarterback, right? Not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty accurate. The thing is, it is a slow ball. It is really slow. If it was Major League Baseball, that thing would be hit out of the park every single time. And Russell is throwing some damn slow balls. He still has the touch, but he's having problems just darting it in there. And with the Broncos, he looked depressed, right? Like, I can't believe this is happening to me. With Pittsburgh, he definitely looks depressed. Like, I'm just playing for the money. Just make it this year for the money. like this might be his last year in the league unless he just goes off. He might just be playing to make sure he secures that deal from the Broncos. Not pretty from Russell Wilson. But on the note of our rivals, you want to talk about pretty. Well, Brock Purdy is not looking very purdy. He's been throwing interceptions all throughout camp, and he's doing it during the preseason. Now, I'm not somebody who will say, hey, the defense keeps picking the quarterbacks off. Hey, the quarterback keeps throwing incompletions in camp because camp is supposed to be the area where you are testing things. Hey, I can throw about this distance before it becomes a problem. I can throw into these routes at this stance and it will become a problem. Let's learn these things in camp. But then he's playing in preseason and it's the same results. Preseason is where you're supposed to put it all together, right? You're supposed to learn, hey, I shouldn't do this. Hey, I should do this. He looks like he's falling apart as far as ball control. And that can ruin a dude's chances to get paid top quarterback money, even if he's gone to the Super Bowl in his second year, NFC Championship his first year. So he's got to get his shit together. But it looks good for us against the 49ers because they got an old team. Historically, teams that lose the Super Bowl don't make it back the following year. And even the last time that the 49ers lost the Super Bowl, it took them a little bit to get back together. That is a team that's in transition, and I know all about transitions, and it might not be Purdy, right? It might not be Purdy at all, and you've seen how quickly the 49ers will go through quarterbacks, from C.J. Beathard to Nick Mullins to Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance. They just keep rotating, and now they bring in Mr. Irrelevant, who might make himself irrelevant if he doesn't have an all-star cast around him. Bringing that back around to Geno Smith, I've often talked about how his contract is the perfect quarterback contract because you can either do one of either. You can either pay your receivers top receiver money, but then you can't afford to pay the offensive line or quarterbacks. You can either pay the quarterback top money, but then you can't afford to pay the receiving units or the offensive line. Or you could balance it out. If you have a quarterback that's good enough to run your scheme well, and you have a receiver who is a superstar, you can pay the superstar and then split your offensive line and quarterback money. So you have a nice balanced unit down there between the hash marks. And that's what we have with Geno Smith. Granted, we're not paying any of our offensive line any reasonable dollars now, except for Tomlinson and then Connor Williams. A little bit to George Fant, but for the most part, all those guys are on their rookie contracts, and they're looking pretty good. If you want to see Geno Smith succeed at a high level, if you want to see a Brock Purdy or a young Russell Wilson succeed at a high level, even Tom Brady back in the day, you don't pay the quarterback the highest money. You make sure that no matter where he's looking on the field, there's a superstar. DK Metcalf, definitely a superstar. JSN, definitely looks like he could be a superstar. And then we got Tyler Lockett, who that dude used to be a superstar. At best is a very crafty vet. Noah Fant, big athletic tight end. But you need two. You need two really good tight ends. We're not bringing in Noah Fant to block, that's for sure. But Brady Russell, our second, well, he's our third tight end. It goes Noah Fant, then Farrell Brown, then Brady Russell, then A.J. Barner from Michigan, who we talked about earlier in this offseason. Brady Russell is probably going to be our number 2 because Farrell Brown is injured. And we haven't seen a lot from Farrell. I would expect Farrell to at least go onto the PUP list. But Brady Russell, he looks like Luke Wilson. And I'm not saying because he's got long hair. He looks like Luke Wilson based off of his build, right? He's got nice wide stance and thick arms, and he's able to maybe not pop a guy on defense out of his position, but he's able to get his hands in between the shoulder pads and turn him, which was giving Kenny McIntosh, probably our third string running back coming up, great running lanes. The other thing that's great about Brady Russell is that since he is able to actually block, he's able to sell play action. And by getting into the second and third level, we have seen he's got great fingertips when catching. A lot of times people that play in the trenches, they get used to being handsy and their hands get tired, right, while blocking. And they forget to catch with their fingertips, they catch with their palms. And if you catch with your palms, you don't have the surface area to complete said catch. He looks great receiving, but he needs to do a better job securing the ball. We saw him make this great sideline catch, get down, and then try to turn upfield. And while he was trying to pocket the ball into his shoulder to secure it, he wasn't paying attention, and the thing just whooped right out, right? That happens when you're trying to do too much. But what was good about him is he makes the catch, and then he knows to immediately put the ball in the opposite direction of the defender that's coming at him. So there's a lot of promise from Brady Russell. I was upset that we let Kobe Parkinson go, who is now with the fucking Rams. But when you look at Brady Russell, he could be just as athletic with not nearly as much development required. The reason I'm upset about Kobe Parkinson, other than his potential, is because we already invested so many years in developing him. Why not keep him after you put him all together? The dude could block. Brady Russell definitely shows some potential. A.J. Barner, who would be our fourth string tight end if Farrell Brown stays healthy, but it's looking more and more that A.J. Barner will be starting on the 53 as our third tight end. He looks solid. Same problems he had in Michigan where he's telegraphing his blocks, but compared to the first week of preseason to this one, he is making a better job getting his hands on guys and turning them, like I said, with Brady Russell. He also did get an opportunity to have the ball thrown at him on the outside, and then picked up some yak, which is mostly why we drafted him from Michigan, right? We were able to swing him out to flanker, and he can block the corner out there or get up to the second or third level to block the outside safety, the strong safety, if you will. So it's good to see him be able to succeed. I would like to see more development from him. If If he improves, it would happen probably later in the season, and that would be him catching up to Brady Russell. I think Brady Russell has very clearly secured that job and has established himself as the better blocker. And based off of small sample size for both, the better receiver, because A.J. Barner still catches with his hands and his fingers, not his fingertips. I would like to see him get a little more tactile there. When it comes to the offensive line, I already commented that Stone Forsythe is our backup / swing tackle. He's played a lot of left tackle this season, this preseason, and it has not looked great. It's mostly been him just getting teed off on, but there are some really good running plays. So whenever you hear somebody say, hey, this Stone Forsythe kid looks good, well, he's really athletic. He's got long-ass arms, and if you put him into a run blocking scheme, he will get at it. When you get him in a pass blocking set, his feet continue to look like he's got stones on his ankles, right? He's kind of clobbering. It's not like he's thinking about it. That's one thing I always talk about offensive linemen is you have to have a guy who does not have to think when moving his feet. I want a natural foot mover. Jermaine Ifedi in particular, he was a guy where you could see he was like, okay, I got to remember to do this with my legs during the middle of the snaps. In the NFL, like that's something you have to learn in college, definitely, but definitely in high school, that's like the first thing you learn is how to move your feet. So when you look at Stone Forsythe, he does have natural footwork. His placement is just poor. When it comes to getting himself kicked and then slid out to pick up a pass rusher, he often doesn't kick far enough, or when he kicks far enough, his legs are too spread apart, so he then gets worked inside because his back leg can no longer support him for a kick inside. So he could improve, but if you're bringing him in, I would rather him be the 6th O-line so he can run block. He's a really good run blocker. Heck, you could even put him at fullback because he's pretty quick too, getting to the second level. On the other side at right tackle, we have Michael Jarrell. He's third behind Abraham Lucas and George Fant. Abraham Lucas definitely probably starting on the pup considering his knee issues. As I've already said many times, you should have 8 offensive line starters because chances are your best players are going to get injured, right? I expect Abraham Lucas to play between 5 and 8 games this year, and I expect that basically every year. But when he is playing, he is without a doubt our best right tackle, and that's why you keep him around. But that's also why you bring in a George Fant who can play right tackle. The big question is, if Charles Cross goes down, do you want Stone Forsythe starting at left tackle and you keep George Fant at right, or is it bad enough with Stone in there that you decide to move George Fant to left tackle? He spent many years playing left tackle, not just for the Seahawks, but for the Jets. So he can do both sides. But who would you rather start at right tackle? Stone Forsythe or Michael Jarrell? Michael Jarrell's been getting all of the right tackle snaps at third string. Stone Forsythe has not. What's interesting about Michael Jarrell is there's no flash. And I need to maybe just do a tape breakdown of him. I feel like he's not putting his feet in a position to succeed. And then by doing so, he's doing a lot of hand fighting. People say, oh, they're just hand fighting in the trenches. Actually, no, it's more of a pendulum. You have to keep your balance right and get the other guy off balance. The good thing about Michael Jarrell is he's very good at kicking out and then containing the outside rush. You'll see him constantly swivel a pass rusher behind the quarterback's 7th step so they don't have a chance to reach the 7th step. Good for Michael Jarrell. But you're not seeing a lot of push on that right side when he's running. He's getting a lot of help from the tight ends. And then you're also not seeing him block the inside rush very well, particularly in overloads. He needs to be able to hand off a block and then move on to the next one. He seems to be a one-guy blocker, not moving on to the second or third guy in his scheme like a quarterback. The offensive line have a process for how to block, and then at the 5th step of the quarterback, block this guy, and then at the 7th, block this guy. Even if it's the same guy, you need to put your blockers in a certain position. And Michael Durrell has proven thus far that he can't really do that unless it's an outside rush, which is really good against someone like a Nick Bosa who is really good outside, right? Or in our case, a Boye Mafe who keeps burning left tackles on the outside. So I'm very interested to see how Michael Durrell responds to this preseason week 3 game, because it does take a couple weeks for the offensive line to get together. Christian Haynes on that note, he's played some right tackle, he's played some left tackle in preseason week 2. He played a lot of left tackle. Maybe Tomlinson looks to be injured, or maybe they're just looking to straight up replace Tomlinson and let him go before the season starts. That's a possibility. Christian Haynes looks like a guy who knows what he's doing. He can, on step 3, make this block and then hand it off to Stone, and then on step 5, slide over and help out Oluwatimi. It was cool to see him perform at a starter caliber level. He does get to the second level while blocking, but he's not getting a lot of push on the first level. Oftentimes he's getting out physicaled by an NFL level nose tackle who just gets up on his face, or a 3-tech who gets on his face. But when he is being blitzed, he is doing a very good job handling the blitz and handing it off. Now, part of that might be that they're starting to, other teams, if they're blitzing, they're like, well, let's just blitz Michael Durrell. But I didn't see too much of it. The interior itself was really holding up. So good things from our draft pick, Christian Haynes. Playing opposite of him and kind of in contention for starting snaps is Anthony Bradford, his second year. Anthony is playing better than Christian Haynes. He's picking everything up. He is pushing the defensive line backwards in running plays instead of just creating seams for the running backs. It is very fascinating to see his development, and I think he's doing really well. As far as center goes, hold on a second. Who was that dude? Jalen Sundell. Jalen Sundell got some snaps at the end of the game, and it's pretty obvious that Oluwatimi is our second string who's competing for first string. Connor Williams, of course, does have some injury issues currently, and again, I've said you never expect a starter to play the entire season. If Oluwatimi was to start the season, I think we'd be all right. I don't know how teams would adapt to him, right? He hasn't experienced that challenge yet, but I do know Sundell looked like Joey Hunt out there. He looked like he was being out physical constantly. You could see him constantly get pushed into the quarterback's lap. That was causing a lot of problems, in particular for PJ Walker. I don't think he took a lot of snaps for Sam Howell, but if Oluwatimi ends up being the starter, Connor goes on IR, Sundell would be our second string center at the time, and I don't think it would go well for us. Now, he's got enough talent around him with Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford or Tomlinson that they can help him. But if he's straight up getting physical in one-on-ones, then we're going to have some trouble with the running game coming into the season. I think our quarterbacks are smart enough to adapt to a rusher in their face or a center being pushed in their face. The big thing is with the Ryan Grubb offense, we focus heavily on the screen game. We haven't seen it yet, but he did that in college. And so you need your guys to be able to beat their blocks and get out to the level. And if we don't have centers that can move, then they're basically not a part of the blocking scheme. They're always going to be behind, and then our running backs are not just going to make one guy miss, they have to make two guys miss. So I would not want Sundell to start. I think Oluwatimi definitely is the superior player. Overall, our offensive line looks really good. If Charles Cross is as expected, if Tomlinson's good, if Connor Williams is as expected, and if Abe Lucas actually gets healthy, we have a top 15 at least offensive line. This, of course, depends on the development as the season goes on. I would like to see Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes continue to get out there and do it. Big thing for the receivers is Laviska Shenault has the coolest name. Laviska Shenault. What a fucking name, dude. So normally, at least in my mind, for preseason games, you sit your starting receiver, maybe you sit two starting receivers, but most of the time teams have one superstar one guy they like, and then a bunch of nobodies. Well, we have 3 really good starters in DK, JSN, and Lockett. And then you have Jake Bobo in there, who's also proven to be really good. And then you have this dude, Laviska Shenault. So we're playing our 4th, 5th, and 6th string receivers out there. I was going to say Corey Taylor, but this is not Slipknot. Cody White and Derek Young in particular have looked really good. And even though Aesop Winston Jr. did get another receiving touchdown, you're going to be hard-pressed to fill that roster and get everyone in. Because if you have DK, you have Lockett, JSN, I think Bobo and then Shenault have secured their jobs. Derek Young is still looking really well. Then who do you have left between Cody White, Aesop Winston, Hayden Hatton, and Ty Scott? I think mostly it's going to be between Cody White and Aesop Winston Jr., and the rest are going to be secured into their positions. But we have a stacked wide receiver room because we're not seeing a giant drop-off in the quality of receiving, except maybe after Cody, because I haven't seen a whole lot from Hayden Hatton and Ty Scott. But also they have PJ Walker throwing to them, and it has not been pretty with PJ Walker. As far as the running back room goes, Kenny McIntosh is pretty clearly secured that 3rd spot. The big thing is pass rushing ability, pass blocking ability. He doesn't seem to be a very good pass blocker. So you ideally would not want him ever being in pass blocking situations. However, if a Kenneth Walker or a Charbonnet were injured, George Halani would come in to be our 4th running back, right? Or in this case, he would be our 3rd running back as Kenny would move up to 2nd. George Halani can pass block. He's looking solid. I wouldn't call him spectacular, but you remember when we brought in Mike Davis, formerly from the 49ers, and I want to say the Bears. Mike Davis was a do-it-all back who is just churning. If you have a good offensive line and good run scheme, George Halani will be just fine. You don't want him to be the starter, though, but if he can pass block and we lose a Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth, it is likely that we're going to see him move up and be a pass-blocking 2-minute drill type of back. So it's cool to see that from George Halani. Kobe Lewis, I haven't seen a lot from him. And then Kyrie Robinson had some flash, but I would expect him to try to be a guy that makes it to the practice squad. You want to try to sneak him there. Cool. So we've gone through the offense. I've seen some good things from the offense. They are very explosive, but we need to do better with just some depth, right? And all the guys I highlighted were like our 3rd and 4th string guys. Our starters are fine. So when you're going up against a Mason Rudolph, who I hate, but he has a good running scheme and he has a good arm, a really good arm, surprisingly. That's probably why he's able to grab players' testicles and scream at them and keep a job. Sorry, I don't like Mason Rudolph. He was going up against our 3rd and 4th stringers on defense. And it looked like it. It looked like a starting caliber quarterback was beating our 3rd and 4th stringers. He was going up against the likes of Mike Morris and Miles Adams. Miles Adams continues to look really good as a pass rusher. One thing that our entire 3rd and 4th string units need to do is get better at getting off of blocks and then making the tackle. We routinely saw the running backs get past the 1st level and then get tackled at the 2nd level. But even with Tyrice Knight at linebacker, who was rushing into blitzing gaps, he would get picked up, be in position to make the tackle and not actually get off of his block, not being held, just being in the wrong position and not getting his hand free. In particular, we saw that a lot with Darrell Taylor. Darrell, I think, is in his 4th year right now. He is playing Sam, but they just have him listed as rush. Darrell Taylor is playing on the right side over the left tackle or the tight end that's on that side, and he routinely was getting beat on running plays. I don't know how he looked on passing plays because I wasn't paying too much attention to him, but whenever there was a running play going his direction, he would get pushed off and then there would be this nice big gap for the running back. So I would like to see him get better at getting off blocks, but it's not just him. Tyrice Knight had that happen to him regularly. The only guy on the line who didn't seem to, as far as our backups go, get routinely beaten on those types of plays were Mike Morris, who continues to just get better and better every week, and then Boye Mafe, who looks like a starter. There's no business for him being behind Draymond Jones. He should be competing with Draymond Jones for starting snaps, which is crazy because a few years ago, Draymond was that dude. Draymond is dealing with health issues, but the fact we have both, it's going to be awesome. You remember that old NASCAR package? We could have a NASCAR package with Jaron Reed, Jones, and Boye Mafe being the three, and then you have Nwosu being the fourth guy outside. We have not seen Nwosu yet. John Radigan and Tyrell Dodson continue to look manageable at linebacker, especially John Radigan. He looks smart. There was this guy, though, what was his name? I think it's Patrick O'Connell. Patrick O'Connell from Montana. I don't know what it is with Montana, but they keep putting out these middle linebackers that are just really smart. They're not the most athletic guys, but John Snyder has routinely been bringing in Montana's middle linebackers, and they've all been serviceable. Not, we need to replace him, but I bet we could get through a year with him. I bet we could get through a year with Patrick O'Connell. If Jerome Baker goes down, we're doing a 3-4, and we need two linebackers in the middle, one Tyrice Knight, one Patrick O'Connell. I think Patrick O'Connell would be fine. They have him listed at weak, but he's playing all over the field. A good pickup from Montana State once again. The linebackers are doing a good job driving into their holes. They're doing a good job pedaling into their coverage positions and making plays on the ball when it's going underneath. One of my favorite things about them is they're just fucking hitting people. That's why I put in that terrible Terry Tate intro, the office linebacker, is because he just, right? Every single time our linebackers are hitting somebody, they're hitting these guys. They're knocking them right off of their feet. And that's been really cool to see because the last few years under Pete Carroll, they've been wanting guys knocking people around, but they can't get the pursuit angles right. You can't get in the right position to hit somebody. Our defense, particularly the linebackers and safeties, are rocking people out of their shorts. And we saw a little bit of that from O'Connell. Definitely seeing that from Tyrice Knight. And then Marquise Blair has also been doing that with Cody Bryant. The thing with Marquise Blair is he almost single-handedly lost us the fourth quarter. When Mason Rudolph was dumping off the ball, it was constantly into Marquise Blair's position. He was having pursuit angle problems. But he's always had pursuit angle problems. He's always overestimated how fast he can get there, and then suddenly the guy's blown by him and he's tackling from behind. It is cool to see, though, that when he is in position to make a tackle, he is absolutely rocking these guys. And that's something I would like to just give him some praise for. I don't know if Marquise is making the team, if he can't fix his pursuit angle problems, but everything else, he's great. Speaking of rocking people, Trey Brown absolutely destroyed a man on Saturday, and he just continues to show why he is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFC West. Not just on the Seahawks. Trey Brown is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFC West. And that 49ers team is nothing to slouch at when it comes to corners. You put him opposite Reek Woolen, who did not play, and you put in Devin Witherspoon, who is being blitzed all over the place. Yeah, we could have a really dangerous defensive back core. If Cody Bryant can make up for his lack of athleticism, which has always been his problem, but he's very incredibly technically sound, and he always has a nose for where the ball is, a la Malcolm Smith. It will be fascinating to see how our defense is actually used in this Mike McDonald scheme, which focuses heavily on just getting after people. We are playing with two safeties high, and we haven't seen the safeties get blown by. There's just been a few pursuit angles underneath by our third and fourth stringers. As far as nose tackle and defensive line, we still don't have any Cameron Young to speak of. But I don't think it matters. I think he's losing this job to Jonathan Hankins, who's been in the league since 2013. And then, of course, we've had DeVere Levelston has been playing all right. But I don't think Levelston makes the team either. I think Miles Adams has clearly secured that position because with Leonard Williams, Hankins, Jerron Reed, Draymond Jones can play defensive tackle, Byron Murphy, and then Mike Morris can play defensive tackle. Man, that's already 6 guys right there. You just throw in Miles Adams. The big man that I'm not sure about is Mario Kendricks, who's been around for quite a while. He has not shown any flash, and he was in during those last couple drives with Mason Rudolph where we lost the game. I'm not sure if he has the push on the interior to get the job done, or frankly, I don't think we just have enough room on the roster for him. You can only keep 7 players at any position so many times. I am concerned about the Jerome Baker situation because our linebackers need like one more guy in the middle. And again, Patrick O'Connell is serviceable. John Radigan is serviceable. But when you go up against a Sean McVay whose entire system is about effing with the linebackers and getting them off their spots, and you have 2 guys that aren't the most athletic specimen that you've seen, they're going to have trouble catching up with guys on crossing routes and all that stuff underneath. Sean McVay likes to clear out space and then give you an opportunity to catch the ball on the flat and then go up the field for yak. John Radigan and Patrick O'Connell are going to struggle with that, especially if our safeties aren't making those tackles on the flats. Part of that is you need to have anticipation when going up against Sean's system. And if we're going up against the 49ers who like to pitch outside, you need a guy who is not only just fast, but physical enough to get past a block on the outside to make the tackle. Christian McCaffrey could have a big game against us if our guys aren't able to get off blocks. Tyrice Knight, as fast as and physical as he is, if he's going after a screen and he gets picked up, so far he has not proven that he can break off of that block. But when you have him just going from point A to point B, he is as advertised. Another thing of note is, before we finally get out of here, is going to be that D. Eskridge didn't play. I don't think D. Eskridge is going to make the team even for special teams. I think D. Williams, the cornerback, and then Laviska Shenault have very much secured the return positions, and they can also play as a backup corner and backup wide receiver. Laviska also just looks huge receiving the ball. He looks like he belongs. Michael Dixon continues to look good, but then Jason Myers, it's like the easier the kick is, the more likely he's not going to make it. And then the harder the kick is, the more pressure he feels. He has now missed an extra point every game this preseason. And this time it at least kept us from going into overtime. The Titans did beat us on the last few seconds of the game with a field goal. So it would have probably gone to overtime. No guarantee we would have won the way that Mason Rudolph was carving us up. So that's my thoughts on that game. We still have some battles, right? We need to see who's going to be the backup right tackle with Michael Jarrell probably competing with Stone Forsythe, even though Stone has been playing left. We are continuing to see some good competition at middle linebacker and just the depth linebacker positions in general. Cody Bryant has clearly secured strong safety, but the main question is going to be who's going to be that 7th cornerback. Is it going to be someone like Williams? Most likely. Is it going to be somebody else on that cornerback roster who we did not talk about today? Nehemiah Pritchett is definitely making the team, but he's looked damn good. DJ James and Carlton Johnson have both looked solid. So if D. Williams is making that roster, it is highly likely that DJ James and Carlton are in competition for that final spot before, as I've said before, John Snyder probably makes a post-preseason Week 3 trade to pick up some guy who he knows is about to be released from another roster. So they're fighting their hearts out for a position that's probably not going to be available to them. At any rate, I think we got good things going on. I guess the only other competition we should be looking at is Kenny McIntosh versus George Holani. I think Kenny has that locked up because he's averaging like 6 yards a carry. It's absurd. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for watching First Kick Seahawks. Please like the video and then subscribe to the channel as we continue to get towards the week 1 of the 2024 season against the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix apparently is the next coming of Peyton Manning. So, but that's what the Broncos always say. So we will have to see, won't we? We might just have to embarrass them week 1 again. Maybe they'll try a 66-yard field goal. Thank you so much. Catch you around.